Welcome back to Healing Out Loud. My name is Donna Blanchard. I'm a transitional life coach, Reiki master, EFT practitioner, and I'm also an author of 2 books. Welcome back to Healing Out Loud. This is episode 1, and this is something I want to talk about. Why do I still struggle sometimes? It's a question I've heard from clients, readers, friends, and honestly, one I often ask myself. Struggling appears out of nowhere, and sometimes I say to myself, like, why? After all this counseling, after all the books I've read and the courses I've taken, why am I still struggling? Haven't I done enough healing by now? Shouldn't I be over this? Why does this still hurt? If you've ever asked yourself these questions, you're not alone. For me, the healing began many, many years ago. Growing up, I experienced parental abandonment and betrayal that would shape much of my life. When I was 15 years old, I had what was described as a nervous breakdown. At the time, I simply couldn't bear the reality that my mother had left. After raising 4 children and being married for 18 years, I could not fathom her walking out of the door. I was overwhelmed by grief, confusion, sadness, and questions that seemed impossible to answer. Often asking, why would she leave? Was it because I wasn't good enough? Would she ever come back? What made it even harder was knowing I wasn't the only one hurting. My dad was struggling, my 3 sisters were struggling, our family had been turned upside down, and each of us was trying to make sense of what had just happened in our own way. We all still felt the sting of abandonment. We all carried questions, pain, and loss. I remember sitting there one day and just praying to God that my mother would return. I actually wrote a letter asking God for her safety and to bring her back to our family as our mother. After my breakdown, I saw a psychiatrist for many months, and I remember being prescribed these little purple pills that were to help calm my nerves. The psychiatrist was in the bottom of a church in Scarborough. I would go once a week, dreading the feelings and dreading that I would be asked questions that I needed to answer. The little pills had helped me with some of my anxiety, but I also remember feeling numb and disconnected from myself. I clearly remember walking up the hall schools and just feeling so disconnected from myself, almost like feeling floaty, and I really didn't like the feeling. Summer was approaching, and like all my friends, we were excited to be reunited, to enjoy water skiing, swimming, and simply feeling like a normal teenager again. I didn't want to keep talking about my feelings. I didn't want to keep taking pills. So eventually I stopped. And looking back, I can see that I wasn't ready to face the depth at what I was carrying. I just remember I really just wanted to forget about what was happening in our family life and just live life pretending that nothing had happened and avoiding everything at all costs. I did what many people do. I learned how to survive. I pushed forward and I tried to build a life. And for many years, I rarely talked about what had happened. I know I carried a lot of shame and guilt, wondering what had gone wrong. It wasn't until my 30s, after my second marriage had ended, and I was forced to face the consequences of choices I had made, including my own adultery, that I found myself at another painful turning point. For the first time, I was forced to look honestly at my life, my choices, my wounds, and the patterns that had followed me for years. That experience brought me back to therapy, and this time I was ready. Not because I had all the answers, but because I finally wanted to understand why I felt the way I did, why I made some of the choices I made, and how could healing the pain I had been carrying for so long. Therapy had given me a safe place to begin understanding myself at a deeper level. I remember I would go once a week, meet with my life coach, and we would simply talk about what was happening in my life. I recall her saying to me that she sensed I was very angry, and I couldn't really pinpoint what she meant because I didn't feel angry. I actually didn't feel anything. I just knew that I was hurting. I knew that life was falling apart all around me, and I knew that I needed help. I also joined several women's work group shops and support groups. I was desperate to grasp onto anything that would help me heal the pain. Over time, I studied psychology, I became a life coach, I explored Reiki and EFT, and eventually wrote my own books, Heal the Pain and Breaking the Chains. Healing became more than something I needed, it became my purpose. But here's what I want you to know. Even after all of that, I still have moments when wounds surface. I still get triggered. I have moments where something hurts more than I expected. And recently, I've been navigating challenges within my own family, from coming back to sisters that I hadn't spoke to in many years. There have been misunderstandings, strained relationships, hurt feelings, and moments when I've had to step back, set boundaries, and resist the urge to fix everything for everyone. The role in my relationships with my sisters, I would say that I was acting out, I was explosive, I was jealous, I was competing. I just wanted to be accepted. And when things didn't go my way, I reacted in ways that was unacceptable. And today I continue to work on forgiving myself and forgiving others that have hurt me. And if I'm honest, some of these situations have touched old wounds. I fear of conflict. I fear the losing of connection. I fear abandonment, the desire to keep everyone happy, and the belief that somehow it was my job to hold everything together. What I've learned is that healing doesn't mean those feelings never show up. It means I recognize them sooner. And usually when I have a pit in my stomach, I stop and say to myself, what's going on? What am I avoiding? What am I stuffing down? What do I need to look at? And then I respond differently. I actually pull out the pen and paper and I start journalizing. I journalize every thought, feeling, just to get it on paper and to get it out of my body. It allows me to understand where it's coming from. And for a very long time, I thought healing meant reaching a place where nothing ever affected me anymore. I thought that this would be the magical finish line, the day when I never felt hurt, the day I never felt rejected, never doubted myself, I'd never struggle again. But life doesn't work that way. Families change, relationships change. People will always disappoint us. Unexpected situations arise. It helps us to navigate life with greater self-awareness and self-compassion and self-trust. Today, when something activates me emotionally, I try not to ask what's wrong with me. Instead, I ask, what is this trying to teach me? The simple shift can change everything. Rather than judging myself for being triggered, I become curious. What wound is being touched? What belief is being surfaced? What do I need right now? And often what I need isn't criticism, it's compassion. One of the greatest lessons I've learned is the healing is about becoming a different person. It's about becoming more understanding of the person you already are. It's about recognizing that coping mechanisms, behaviors, and patterns you've developed often begin as ways to survive. And when we understand that, we stop fighting with ourselves. We begin meeting ourselves with kindness instead. So today I'd like to leave you with a few gentle questions. Where are you being hard on yourself? What are you expecting yourself to be over with by now? What if your struggle isn't proof that you failed? What if it's simply an invitation to understand yourself more deeply? Healing isn't about struggling. It's about learning to meet yourself with compassion when you do. I really want to thank you for spending time with me. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to follow the podcast and share with someone who may need to hear it. And remember, you don't have to figure it all out. You just have to take the right next step for you. Until next time, I can't wait to share the next episode of Healing Out Loud. where we'll talk about the cost of being the strong one. Thanks again for joining Healing Out Loud by Donna Blanchard.